Hello, SuperCoach lovers. Welcome to our the Sanctum's podcast SuperCoach show for round 10. We're up to already. Looking back at round 9, looking forward to round 10. We're one short this week with Mike succumbing to illness, sore knee apparently. I mean, he could still join us, but he won't watch this for us to sledge him all we want all week. Dan, how you going, mate?
Going well. I will cover it later on, but 4 out of 4 victories despite a terrible trade.
That's all right. And Mick, how you doing, buddy?
Good, mate. It's an average score this week, 21.65, so which netted me only 2 out of 4 league wins. Another couple of questionable trades for me this week as well. So anyway, live and learn.
Yeah, I think it's tough going for a lot of people out there. We'll jump straight into it. Traditional segment that kicks things off, the Garys and Nathans of looking back at round 9. Dan, mate, I really want to start with you because I know where we're going to go with this one. What do you got for us?
For my Gary, I'm going to have to go with the big ruckman Rowan Marshall. He finally pulled out a good score with 131. He's had a couple of good scores up there this year, but just thought I'd give him a bit of a shout out because this is one of those weeks where Tim English didn't get above 100, so it was good to have Rowan Marshall there to back him up. And then, of course, my dud was our man that we were talking up last week as a potential fall and premium to get on if he started mid. And he started mid, got one touch, and then he did a calf muscle. So Callum Mills, you cost me. All right, so 4 points. Absolutely pathetic. You're straight out this week. We'll wait to hear more about that later on. So those would be my Garys and Nathans for this week.
It was very funny. As soon as I saw him go down, before you even messaged and said, "Oh man," I was like, "Yep, poor Dan." Mick, mate, what about you? Your Garys and Nathans for round 9.
Yeah, my Gary for this week is this champion here. The track he netted a 148, and I started him as VC actually, so I was able to loophole him in as my captain score. So 296 for the captain is always going to put you on the right stead for a good score. The Nathan would definitely be the ex-Essendon little Irishman Conor McKenna, who was really disappointing this week, and despite Essendon losing to the Lions, McKenna only pulled out a 35. So but his season average is 64, but it puts his break even up to 88 now. So yeah, he's definitely my Nathan for the week. And out the door, gone back to Ireland.
Nice one. Well, my Gary's probably got to be Sam Walsh because he's about the only player in my midfield who consistently scores 110 plus. The others are so up and down. Brayshaw, he's 150 back to an 88. So Walshy, mate, we'll talk a bit about him later, but definitely my Gary. And my Nathan, well, I have no idea really who to choose, so I'm just going to chuck a picture of an ambulance here because it feels like half my side is cooked. He's gone. Hopper's out for a while. LDU, even though he got the 122, he's hurt himself. So I reckon I'm just endlessly trading because blokes are getting injured. You're in the same boat, Dan, with Callum Mills. So just poor luck. I'll just call it bad luck this year. So hence my Nathan's just the ambulance, the injuries that are happening. So there's too many players to mention that are doing so badly for me. So that's the story of the year sometimes. We'll move on, to what we often look at is the rookies we can target this week. I might start with you, Dan. 1 or 2 rookies that we can potentially look to bring in if we need to.
Yeah. So in the position I'm in with Mills having to go out, I've got enough cash there, but I might want to find a little bit more just with the coming buy rounds and look to have a bit of cash in there so I can bring in a few premiums. So I think Harry Sharp is the one that's caught my eye. So midfielder from Brisbane, scores of 68 and 44. The 44 was in his first game. Obviously not great, but the 68 showed promise. If he gets named, I'll think about it. The only other ones, yeah, it's pretty slim pickings. I'll leave the other ones for you guys to discuss, but not very much out there.
Nah, you're gonna have to be a bit creative, and then sometimes that just bites you on the butt trying to be too cute. Anyway, Mick, what about you? Any others out there we could look to downgrade to if we need to?
Yeah, Sharp's the main one to obviously look at. Another one would be Thomas Berry from the Suns in the forward line, 123.9k. Played his 2 games, so he's on the bubble, averaging 53. So he's had a 48 and what would that be, 57 for an average of 53. So negative break even -34. Yeah, it might be worth looking at. It's not great scoring, but it will generate some cash if he averages that sort of 50 to 60 mark. So if you're looking for someone to cover a hole in your forward line, then he could be a potential choice.
Yeah, well, one from me, and I honestly, until this week, I hadn't even heard of the bloke, and that's Bailey Humphrey from Gold Coast. Most rookies you sort of want to bring in to make your cash have played the 2 games. He's played the 6, I think. So he's at 213,000, slowly just making a little bit, but he scored 117 on the weekend. So his price will hopefully go up 100,000 or so. He's mid/forward, so that might be useful if he keeps getting the game, particularly during the bye rounds, because the Suns have their bye only with the Cats, so they're just in the round with 2 of them. So it won't be too damaging if he's not playing. So he might be just one to think about as well. But it is, I'm loath to think that Sharp will get many games once a couple of blokes come back. But if you've got no other option, which we're struggling with at the moment. So, and looking what people have brought in, most are going at this stage: Sharp, Humphrey, and Berry. They're the 3, and then after that, there's not much to go by. So, see how you go. Maybe it's a week where we don't actually use any, just see how we go. If there's not much out there rookie-wise, you're probably going to have to look a bit left of centre. Maybe it's a few points of difference. We talked about a few last week. We might just touch on some again this week for people. We'll see if we can put the curse on someone else, like we did with Millsy. Dan, you want to maybe talk about some defenders that we could look to bring in that might be a bit of a difference to some people?
Yeah, so I think we spoke about 2 of these for the other week. So we spoke about Jake Lloyd, Mr. Dependable, who's averaged 100 for as long as we can sort of remember. Sitting currently at number 7 on the defender list and only 8% ownership, 532.8 thousand in there, and really he's a solid choice. The next one is sitting at number 9 on the defensive list, and that's Adam Sard. We've spoken about Sard, and he's at 513.9k and only 4.2% ownership, which is pretty low for a player that's doing what he's doing. And he's had a couple of games where he scored big 110, 120 plus sort of games. But I want to chuck out 2 that are maybe worth just looking at over the next few weeks. Again, the first one is a real left field one in Charlie Ballard. So one of those Gold Coast players who probably slips under the radar. But if you look at his 3-round average, which is never an amazing sort of indicator, see how he goes if he gets to his 5-round average. But he's sitting with 113 for his 3-round average, which is massive. That's right up there, and it's the number 3. That would put him as the number 3 defender over those past 3 rounds. So he's only at 0.4% ownership, 477.1k. So you might save a bit of cash, pick up a guy that no one else has. Keep an eye out, and it's 101 for the 5-round average. So he's thereabouts in scoring. And the last one is just a guy that we're probably going to forget about a little bit. He came in to the start of the year and scored a couple of monster scores. And then he's been out ever since. He's got 4 to 6 weeks remaining on his injury, but just might be one to think about if you're looking for that sort of D5 or 6, because it's only 397.7k, and that's Dane Rampy with his average was would put him at the number 8 ranked defender.
Yeah, I reckon if you're struggling a bit in your leagues and you're just looking for that little bit of difference, some of those I like the look of Charlie Ballard as well. So certainly, if you wanted to be keen on points of difference, some good options there. Mick, what about some mids? I know we talked about a couple last week. You might have a couple others for us that not many people have ownership of.
Yeah, Libba has really stamped himself as a premium mid this year. He's averaging 118.5, which is the fifth highest midfielder. He is priced at 625k, so it's up there, but he only has 4% ownership. So that's a genuine pod right there, and a guy who you know I think he scored about 142 on the weekend. So his output's been sensational, and a really interesting choice actually, and one that I'll seriously be looking at this week. As I feel like I'm gonna have to unload LDU. It looks like he's out for at least 3 to 4. So I don't know if I can cover that in my league losses for up until the bye rounds. I think I'm going to have to force a trade there. So Libba will be probably the main one to look at. Sam Walsh, another interesting one, only in 6.6% of sides. He's a number 6 ranked mid, averaging 114.8. And then you got Josh Kelly, who's only in 4.6% of sides as the ranked 11 mid, averaging 111. But Kelly at the moment, these last 4 rounds have produced scores of, where are we? I had it here a second ago. Here he is. So he's given us, here we go. So 139, 88, 129, 116. So he's back to that really consistent. On the 88 might be a bit of a blip, but he's that consistent scoring that we got to expect from Kelly there for the last at least 4 or 5 years. So I think they're probably the main 3 I would be looking at as really good pod choices for your midfield.
Yeah, we might. We'll certainly have a chat about Sam Walsh later when we look at the potential dual position changes. I think he's one that's going to skyrocket in ownership in a couple of weeks. That falls if that happens, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Just some forwards from me. It was interesting to read today that over the last 4 weeks, the number 4 ranked player in the league is Zach Butters. So that's not SuperCoach scores necessarily, but whatever they use for their rankings. So he's obviously having a big impact. He's forward/mid. Now his average is up to 104. Just under 7% of sides own him. So it seems as though he's getting more games in his legs, I don't know, or running through the midfield a bit more. The other 2 really. Shai Bolton, I was loath to watch him run amok against Geelong on Friday night. He was a gun last year and then sort of slowed to get going like the Tigers have been this year. So his 3-round average is up to 116. So, and only 5% of people own him. So he's another one if you're looking for a forward point of difference. And then the one which will be a big in as soon as he's named, I reckon, is Darcy Cameron. There's talk he'll be in this week. He was flying before he went down, averaging 110. His ownership's only 3.5%. He will be double figures in no time, I reckon, once he actually is named to play a game. Less than 500,000. I think everyone's going to jump on him for sure. So there's just a few you can consider. We'll keep throwing them at people every couple of weeks for those who like a bit of a difference. We might have a little bit of a talk also about a couple of those that scored huge last week. Mick, I might start with you if you want to talk about the highest point scorers last week and whether we think those sort of people are worth considering, or whether we've got them, or just they're sort of a fluke. What do you reckon, Mick? Who you got for us?
Yeah, I'll probably shout out to my boy Mason Redman, who gave us 136 this week. He's actually dropped quite a bit of price. He's what you'd almost consider him a fallen premium as a defender. He started the season at 510k. He's down to 444 now. So he's had some really up and down scores though. Like he's getting plenty of the ball. He had a really good run at the start, 118, 110, and then he had a 49 against the Saints, and then back to a 128 against GWS. And then he hasn't scored above 89 in the last 5 rounds, other than this week where he's got a 136. So he's generally a really consistent defender for the Bombers and gets plenty of that run out of half back, which he's proven to be a sensational player for Essendon. And last year he became almost I think he was maybe slotted into about D5 last year as one of the top 5, top 6 defenders. So He'd be one I'm probably not looking at bringing him in just yet after one really good score following 4 bad ones, but definitely at his price at the moment, his break even will be fairly high still. And if he puts in another 120 plus 110 120 plus score this week, then he could be a really interesting potential pick, I think, going forward.
Again, another different one. I know my opponent in the main league I concentrate on had him, and that cost me victory. So, bloody Redmond. Dan, what about you? You got one or two for us of the high point scorers last week worth having a look at?
Yeah, so Matt Rowell, probably a bit forgotten last week when I think we were all talking about Noah Anderson. And Noah Anderson pulled out that sub 100 score after his massive, 189 or something the week before.
No.
But Rowell was the top scoring midfielder this week with 165 points. Look, he's had one other score above 120 this year, but 3 scores under 90, and so he could go missing in some of those early games. But if you look at his, I know he's obviously propped up a little bit with that 165, but his 5-round average is 118.2. And he's ranked as the 9th highest mid over the last 3 rounds. So he could be one that you look at getting in. And we've spoken about before, no Took for however long. It's really falling on the shoulders of Noah and Matt Rowell in the midfield for the Suns. The other one that was an interesting one, but I think stay away, is Todd Goldstein wound back the clock with 171 points. But it was against a Port Adelaide ruck that's really lacking. And he's only had one other score above 120, so don't get seduced with that. I think steer clear of Goldie. He's been a great servant for SuperCoach for a long time, but I think his days in your team are done.
Yeah, look, interesting one. Some people just get so quickly seduced by one good score. I agree. Goldie, I would steer clear. Matt Rowell, previous years you'd have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 blokes averaging 120 plus, and they're the ones you end up wanting to get. This year it's feels like you could go with different ones a little bit, and he might be one for sure. Whether him or Anderson, they might steal points off each other, but certainly one to consider. One for me, which I think a lot of people have. I unfortunately don't have him. I sort of went a different route at the start of the year. Was Errol Goulden, who scored 156 again after we potted him, and after he just keeps going and going. He was the highest scoring forward. Look, at some point I might have to look at getting him in, but there's going to be a few more options in the forward line in coming weeks. So maybe I'm just going to have to be one that misses the boat. Speaking of options in the coming weeks, after round 11, so in a couple of weeks' time, we're looking at some more dual positions being offered. So there's some quite intriguing ones to discuss, and we'll well and truly make our strategies ones to think about, that's for sure. Dan, I might start with you if you can go through a couple that are potentially going to be changing to dual positions from their current one.
Yeah, so I think what do they have to be at 30?
Yeah, 35. Yeah, so they've got to play 35% of the season in that position, and have to have played at least 6 games. So all the blokes we're about to talk about have played the 6 games or more, pretty much, and they're around that 35%, as we'll mention. So they're all looking pretty likely, most of them are. So I'll throw to you, Dan.
So. Yeah, I do really like the look of Max Gawn as that forward option. Similar to, I guess, what we were talking about with Cameron before we put the moss on him and he got injured the next week. So he's played 37% forward. He's only averaging that 90, but that thing does include his score of 0. So don't be too scared off by that. Just especially one to look at if you've got, if you maybe don't have another really sort of moving ruck there, or if you wanted to have the flexibility of being able to put, if you've already got him, to put him forward at that point in time, and then think about maybe another ruck option of someone that's going well. Just like that flexibility of being able to move him across, especially if you did what I did and put a forward ruck as your bench forward ruck. Just gives you that flexibility in the buy rounds as well to just move him back into the ruck if you need it.
Yeah, a lot of the ones we're going to look at are potentially going to end up as forwards, and most people have got Taranto, who's fine, and Dunkley, who's fine, and Sheasel maybe has to go if this is what we're going to end up doing, and even Connor Rosie or Gould, and a lot of people have got those locked in. So making room for these people like such as Gorn makes it interesting. You're right. I've got Madden from the Giants, so maybe Gorney comes in as a forward, and if I need to switch the two during the bye rounds a little bit, I do. Mick, what about you? One or two others that are looking like dual positions.
Yeah, an interesting one is Jaden Short, who started the season as a mid, standalone mid, and as we know, Shorty has been a defender, a really solid defender for the Tigers for years. Started as a mid this year, obviously getting quite a lot of time last season, but now Dimmer seems to be using him a fair bit back in defence. It looks like he's getting about 40% defender time at this stage, so fairly likely that he's going to continue that and get his DPP as mid defender. So with his average of 101, it would make him the 10th highest defender. So he's priced at 539 still. So whether that's good enough to bring you in, as the 10th highest defender, but you kind of want to obviously target the top six guys. But I don't know if he's getting a good mix of defence and mid time, then I think his scores could sort of fluctuate to a point where he might actually end up maybe becoming sort of D7, possibly D8, if and a pretty good pod too at this stage. I think he's got fairly low ownership as well. So yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, for sure. A couple for me, and I actually have both these blokes in my midfield already. So, in a sense, it's good for me because I won't have to waste a trade if I decide to shift them forward. The first one's Jack McRae, who is 35% forward at the moment. So it is going to be really touch and go. His average in the midfield, he's been hopeless for me, averaging 102 as a midfielder, no good. But as soon as you chuck him as a forward, that would make him the 7th highest forward, and I could well and truly live with that. So, fingers crossed, Bevo plays him as exclusively as full forward for the next 2 weeks, Bevo. That would be great, just to get that number over the line. And the other one, which is only in 7% of teams, and we've talked about him a bit tonight, Sam Walsh. I've got him already, and so I was happy to have him as a point of difference in my midfield. He's played 40% forward, and so he's a lock to end up a forward in a couple of weeks, and everyone will jump on him. That would make him the highest ranked forward. He'll end up in half the side. So there goes my point of difference. But at least it means I don't have to try and work out who's going to be my 5th and 6th forwards when it sort of feels like there's not as much to choose from. I'll just move those two forward and gives me some options in the midfield. So just a few out there. Was there any others, Dan, Mick, that we might want to look at?
No, I think those would be the main ones for me. Just it's touch and go for a few players that might just not get there. So I think the other one that's currently sitting at 31% as forward time is Christian Petrarca. Very unlikely that he'll get that extra 4% that he needs by was it round 11?
Yeah, end of round 11.
This one.
Or you can.
So what's he got? 2 weeks.
Yeah, he's got a bit of an injury, so maybe they'll play him this week and just see him in the forward line a bit more, just to help us out, man. If he got to the 35% as well, our forwards are going to be stacked. So, and I'll go your odd there, Mick, with having Petrarca when not many people do. Then everyone will have him as well.
Yeah. Him and Sam Walsh, I've got them both. So there goes 2 pods out the door. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely touch on those again in a couple of weeks once those come through. We'll also talk about maybe next week when we'll talk about the buy strategies as we get closer again. I know we talked about that last week. We'll have a chat about that again as we get closer to the buy rounds of round 12, 13, 14 and 15. But we'll finish up with our traditional finish for the day, and that's your Dan's Rage Trade corner. I know it's going to be, but now's your time to let rip, mate.
Look, I'm going to have to go fire him up. I'm going to have to go full rage mode. I was sitting there, really, set for that at the start of the Sydney game, and I thought, this will be a good one. Callum Mills finally named in midfield, starting in midfield. Horse finally listened to the people, listen to the masses. put him in the guts, and he rewarded us with one touch before doing a calf muscle and going off. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to call Callum a little selfish with his with his calf, but you really did cost me. And I tossed it up. I was like, oh, I could go. I was actually thinking about putting in Chad Warner at the time. Could have gone LDU. I mean, that would have backfired as well. So anyway, this is the second player that I brought in and then going to get straight back out. So, yeah, pretty shameful display, Callum. You need to take a long, hard look at yourself while you're on the sidelines. And when you come back, if you play mid, you might be back in the team because you dropped 50,000 in 1 week. So thanks, Callum.
So good. I think they should all be booted straight away. I love it when you're booting them straight away, Dan. I just was looking back at the ones you've rage traded throughout the year. Lockie Ash, he's not going very well. Bailey Dale's up and down. Warple's no good. Rich Duncan, please. Ruben Ginby scored 108, but he's struggling as well, really, overall. Setterfield, even with Parrish out, couldn't even score big, so you're good to can him. Did you get rid of Crashcroft in the end last week, Dan? And then I think he did really well, didn't he?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he did. Very well. What did he get? 100?
Yeah, so. bit over. Yeah.
Can I just say, Lockie Ash scored 100 this week.
There you go.
I'm pretty sure he scored 100, didn't he?
I think your aim next year, mate, when you start your side, is to start all of these 23 that you've named.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all good.
Yeah, I'm always just one season out. I had some of the guys that are taken off, and I had them last year. I think we were chatting about it, and they just didn't take off last year. But then this year, I've gone from strength to strength. So I don't know.
You're ahead of your time.
Yeah, you're good at picking the form. That's for sure. You're just Nostradamus over there.
I'll take it.
Oh, good. Mick, I'll throw to you. Any last words for this week? What are you looking at? Etc.
Yeah, trades. So any Chandler owners out there, keep an eye on. Don't keep an eye on him. Time to get rid of him. His break even's 105 now. He's made us 230 grand. He's done a really good job for us in generating some good cash. So time for him to bugger off. As we said before, LDU out for 3 to 4. So keep an eye on your trade your buy strategy. If whether you want to sort of rotate him out and then back into your team if you can afford those trades. Other than that, captain's choice this week. It's looking like I did Petrarca into Bontempelli last week, which worked quite well. I used Trax 148 and that worked out well for me. So I'll be doing that again. But other than that, Bombers in the Dreamtime game Saturday. So I think we're a chance actually. Just I know I'm drifting off path a little bit here, but
we could talk about that. It's fine.
Yeah, I think the Tigers are playing some better footy at the moment, but we showed some glimpses against a really strong Lions outfit on Saturday, so I'm confident.
Do you know they're going for the all-out record?
Yes, for the most
13 in a row.
Yeah,
13 in a row. So we will make it what 14?
Yeah,
14.
That's all right. Look, this is probably the podcast's best chance for all of our teams to win the next week because we haven't got Mike here and he breaks for West Coast, so they're never going to win. So because he's not here, yep, I reckon the Carlton's a chance, mate. You never know.
Well, I hope so. Do it for me. Do it for me.
Any last bits of advice there?
No, just as we were talking about it, I think it's just we'll talk more about it next week as well. Just keep an eye out on who you are bringing in and when they've got their buys, because I know that I've just sort of started doing a preliminary little count, and we'll talk more about that next week. About just that premium player. And look, Callum Mills going out, not the worst thing. Sydney's got that buy in that first sort of line of buys, so it might not be the worst one that he's done a calf muscle, but we'll see how we go next week.
Yeah, well, from my point of view, I'd love to get rid of the likes of Chandler and Van Rooyen, but I probably need need to be able to trade them out to bring the potential dual positions down to the forward line in a couple of weeks. So I've got Hopper who's cooked. I've got LDU. McKenna's past his use by date. So there's quite a few there I can already look to move on before there's others that get the chop. Canada, I probably wish I had about 9 trades this week, but alas, we only get the 2 or the 3. I'm even running out of boosts really. So we'll see how we go. I'm off to North Melbourne, Sydney to watch another record. I think if North loses the first 3 quarters, they break the record for the most consecutive quarters lost. So that should be great. And then I'm going to the Dreamtime game as well. So I hope the Bombers get up for you, Mick.
Thanks, mate.
All good. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thank you for watching, for those who do, and we'll see you all next week. Best of luck to your SuperCoach sides.